Right off the top, let's talk about that pomp and pageantry at the White House, starting off a busy day in the United States and in Washington, D.C. for King Charles. President Trump and the King just wrapped up their closed-door meeting at the White House. Earlier, President Trump and the First Lady welcomed the King and the Queen, Queen Camilla, at a rainy, formal ceremony at the White House. Later this afternoon, King Charles will deliver a historic address before a joint session of Congress. So let's talk about the day ahead. Live to the White House and CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand. Natalie, good to see you. Do we know what the President and the King could have discussed in that meeting that just adjourned?
Hi, Reed. Well, we have some guesses, but I think it's also important to point out that, the King's role as head of state is not supposed to be political. He cannot make military decisions or trade deals. This is a more unifying ceremonial role. So, while, again, the policy side is not really in his jurisdiction, but he can serve an important role in soothing some of the tensions that we know have existed and ratcheted up recently between President Trump and the UK government, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, in terms of the war in Iran, President Trump's criticism of NATO, also, obviously, the war in Ukraine and continued concern in Europe and the UK on that front, and also some of the trade tensions that have existed over the past year or so. So we can expect maybe some of those topics came up broadly, but, we also know that these two have a strong and personal relationship. And in the president's remarks earlier during that very formal arrival ceremony, he really noted the longtime alliance and the reason why King Charles is here to mark America 250 years of independence, and again, the strong alliance that has existed in the decades after that, particularly post-World War II, which the president also nodded to, talking about, the meeting between Prime Minister Churchill and President Roosevelt to talk about a vision for the free world post, following the war.
Natalie, is it striking to anybody there at the White House that we heard, and our viewers saw this live on CBS News 24/7, the President of the United States welcome the King and Queen and speak about that storied relationship between the UK and the United States, but that the King himself did not speak during that particular event?
Yeah, I was maybe expecting a few remarks. Maybe he's saving it for the big joint address before Congress. What is something else that was notable to us is, there wasn't an opportunity for questions by reporters. That bilateral meeting between President Trump and the King remained closed, as did, the series of events following that very formal ceremony that we saw play out on our screens. But yeah, we have not been able to ask many questions and interact with the King. Perhaps that will come later, and obviously all eyes will be on Capitol Hill in a couple hours from now when he becomes the second British monarch to address Congress.